I'm Joon Sang Baek from Yonsei University in South Korea. And I'll thank you for inviting me to this interesting event. My presentation is about upcycling wasted human capabilities. I'm going to introduce a case study of upcycling the capabilities of solitary seniors in South Korea. So my research domains lie in the nexus of design, social innovation, and sustainability. I'm not from upcycling. I don't know much about it, to be frank, but I'm very interested in how design can contribute to solving social and ecological problems. And so that's why when I was invited to this seminar, I had a slightly different idea from others what upcycling can do for more sustainable society. When I did brief literature reviews on upcycling, some report that barriers exist in spreading upcycle practices, and they include, among others, insufficient supply of input materials and low volume solutions. Hemmings also claimed that, at least in the textile industry, upcycling works for small and focused projects, but is impractical on a large scale. So if we have such barriers in terms of upcycling tangible material waste, transforming them into something of higher value or quality, why not shift our view to something intangible, such as human capabilities? Because in the contemporary society, with limited resources, but increasing and aging human population, and also ever-increasing complex social and environmental problems, human capabilities are an input material that's never going to be scarce. So in this seminar, I'd like to provoke a discussion on whether we can expand the scope of objects of upcycling to immaterial waste, especially underutilized and wasted human capabilities, and would like to introduce case studies of design for peer support among solitary seniors in South Korea that aimed to transform seniors' capabilities into something of greater value. In South Korea, society is rapidly aging and going through a transition where seniors are considered unproductive and their abilities are thus underutilized and wasted. This is problematic as a society because we lack an economically active population while simultaneously suffering from an increasing burden of maintaining the social welfare system. So if you look at these charts, South Korea is aging faster than any other developed countries in the OECD. Population aged 65 and over is estimated to be about 70% of that aged 15 to 64 in 2050. And this cohort is also economically, not only socially, but also economically vulnerable, as shown in the graph in the right. But there is a lack of social welfare system and safety net for them. So the case study that I'm going to present to you is a design intervention where my PhD student and I collaborated with a social enterprise to develop a peer support service for solitary seniors in South Korea. To give you a brief background of this project, 1 out of 5 seniors in South Korea live alone, and they are prone to social isolation, loneliness, and depression. The number of lonely deaths among these individuals account for more than 1/3 of all lonely deaths in South Korea. Uh, Peer support is known to enhance mental well-being and increases the knowledge and capabilities of self-help groups in various settings, including seniors. Peer support also contributes to social inclusion and the empowerment of seniors by engaging them in activities aimed to meet their own needs as well as those of others. So this diagram describes a theoretical framework that underlies the development of this program as peer support service. So in any organization, there is a social dimension called social system that consists of people and their relationships. And also there is a technical dimension called technical system, which is can be described as a sequence of activities. And the social and technical systems are interdependent. And the state of social system influences the design of the technical system. And implementation of the technical system influences the state of social system. So if we apply this interdependency between two systems into the design of peer support service, we can first understand peer support in a solitary senior community, and this understanding will guide us to design services that reinforce their exchange of peer support. And we can assess peer support of this community, and this will allow us to validate the effectiveness of these services. So the service that we developed with this social enterprise is called Colorful Youth. Was developed our client was one of the local district in Seoul, Yangcheon-gu district in Seoul, and this program supports people who live alone and are characterized as both independent and reluctant to receive support, even if they are socially, emotionally, and economically vulnerable. As the number of lonely deaths among this cohort was increasing, a group of social entrepreneurs have initiated a peer support service to provide them with emotional or affective support. The service organized weekly meetings that consisted of various group activities, including board games, story sharing, and peer mentoring. Colorful Youth is an intervention designed to foster peer support for individuals with a condition for which peer support network do not typically emerge spontaneously because these people are reluctant to get help from others. This is an image of a letter that one of the participants wrote to himself. And this person is in his 50s. And this letter describes, the dream he had in his childhood, and how he wanted to become sorry, I forgot to I forgot the word in English, but he went to study theology and wanted to work as a pastor, and then that's how he started his church. But during the IMF, he lost everything, and he stayed isolated for 8.5 years. And this program helped him to think about his dream and hope again, and he says he's grateful for this opportunity. So when we initiated this project, we had 3 research questions. The first one was, how do we understand the relational dimension of peer support services? Second, what needs to be considered in order to design favorable conditions for people for peer support to develop among seniors? And third, how do we design peer support services from a relational perspective? This is our theoretical framework. In this model, the examination of network structure of the participants yield an understanding of the relational dimension of peer support. The examinations of network quality lead to an understanding of the functional, or what I described in the previous slide as technical dimension. And network quantity is related to both the relational and functional dimensions. So we developed metrics for network structure, quantity, and quality. These metrics help us to measure the social system of these people, solitary seniors, and also these metrics helped us to measure the influence of our intervention. And this is a table describing each metric. So from the literature reviews, we selected metrics and we used them in our analysis. There was a clear difference in perceived levels of effective support between participants who are actively engaged in our program and those who are not. The former tended to perceive more effective support than the latter, indicating that our program was effective in building peer support. We also observed that the exchange of peer support spontaneously developed into cliques. In the beginning, the participants found it difficult to open their minds to strangers, even though they acknowledged the importance of peer support. It needed one person's courage to be honest and truthful to break the ice and facilitate the exchange of peer support. It was very difficult for these people to open their mind to strangers and talk about their stories that are very, in a way, private. And also, these stories are mostly the stories of failure and despair. But when one person started his story, it kind of broke the ice and facilitated the exchange of peer support among the participants. So these people were total strangers in the beginning. And when we measured the participant social network 15 weeks after the program began, we found that network fragmentation in the form of cliques developed over time in this program. The result was rather polarizing. During the program, participants, by the way, this diagram that you see has nodes and arrows. The nodes indicate the participants of the program, and the arrows indicate perceived peer support. And the thickness of the arrow indicates the strength of support, the perceived support, and the arrow indicates the direction to which this node perceived peer support from. So B, C, D, and G developed strong peer support relationships and became program advocates, whereas participants A, E, and F remained disengaged, dissatisfied, and eventually stopped participating. This was partly due to the mismatch between the service goal and participants' needs. The service aimed at providing effective support, whereas some of the participants expected to be to receive instrumental aid, such as the financial support and access to a new job. This may have contributed to their dissatisfaction and lack of participation. Based on our empirical data, we defined the conditions, preconditions for building peer support relationships among people who are, socially vulnerable and isolated. The first condition is that we need to mitigate network fragmentation or cliques, because the cliques have positive aspect of kind of building peer support, but it also has a negative consequence of separating people who are actively engaged and from people who are not, and it eventually leads to network fragmentation. So we need to mitigate this forming of cliques. We also argue that we need to align participant needs with service goals and foster their freedom and truthfulness to be who they are. Defeating stereotypes about solitary seniors as someone passively defeating stereotypes about solitary seniors as someone passively seeking help is important, because this stereotype can induce attitudes and behavior tending towards greater dependency. We need to engage participants in self-identification of themselves and peers, that is, understanding who they are and who their peers are, which is another precondition to build peer support that is genuinely empowering. And we also developed a peer support service design process based on our own experience. And this process consists of 4 stages: service development and implementation, evaluation, and reflection and co-design. In addition to the case of colorful youth, we also introduced the existing cases of aging with ingenuity in South Korea in a book titled Aging, Ingenuity, and Design, which was edited by Yang Lee and Patricia Moore in 2015. In this book, we introduce a case called No Care. In Chinese letter, no means aged seniors. So No Care is basically a peer support program implemented by a senior club in Ulsan, South Korea. The basic idea is to empower seniors to help themselves. So if you look at this image in the right below, you have a woman in her 60s helping another woman in 80s. And by providing this her service, she gets paid from this from the government, and so basically this is about helping one another and helping oneself. This book also presents similar cases from other countries that introduce brilliant ideas of upcycling human capabilities that would otherwise be wasted. So after the presentation, I'd like to ask questions for discussion. This is a question that I had when I prepared this seminar, and would love to hear from you. So can we include immaterial waste in the objects of upcycling? And how can you use the knowledge of upcycling research in valorizing underutilized human capabilities, perhaps in a metaphorical sense, but also, you know, methodology from upcycling research uh, could be useful to valorize these underutilized human capabilities in our society. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation. These are the references. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond. Thank you.